Going to put you on the spotlight so you're ready to go.
Okay, can you see me okay, everybody?
Yeah, your
Alright.
face literally fills up the entire screen. I feel like Elizabeth Taylor, one of those movies in which it was a huge screen. I was just a young person, and I had never seen a face that huge. It was 32 feet high or something.
All right, I'm trying to back up.
No, that's fine.
There we go.
No.
This is interesting. Okay, I'm going to read for the first one. I'm really into list poems. I'm sure it's the Virgo moon part of me, but I just love list poems. So what with the pandemic and all, I figured I'd write a special one in honor of toilet paper. And it's called 7 Ways of Looking at Toilet Paper. 1. Bleached white and insubstantial as the word of an ex-lover. Rip it into squares, swab your private parts, examine the paper's surface, toss it into the swirl. Repeat as often as necessary. The bathroom is your laboratory. Sometimes 2 or 3 squares will do. And other times it takes 10 or even 12. Much depends on your solid food intake. Do the math. 2, if you go to Morocco, don't expect toilet paper as a matter of course, you stupid fucking tourist. Next, you'll be wanting a throne for your pampered American ass. Purchase a roll at the market and carry it around in your backpack or purse. It won't be Charmin, you pompous wasp. Moroccan TP is gray and scratchy as an elderly wino's 3-day-old beard. Shut up and be sure to buy several rugs before you fly home. 3, the 2004 Portland Rose Festival had a Charmin trailer with posh bathrooms. People stood in line, waiting for the chance to excrete waste. They looked bored. At the doorway, uniformed attendants handed rolls of toilet paper to everyone. Welcome to the Charmin building, they sang. Enjoy yourself. Inside the bathrooms, happy music played while cartoon videos of dancing animals flickered on screen. Just a devious and effective ploy to win over potential customers to the wonders of quilted Charmin. 4, your goddamn roommate didn't position the new roll properly. Everyone knows the end is supposed to go over, not under. Defection from this rule is grounds for homicide in some states. Your Honor, I tried to warn him, but he wouldn't listen. You hated your roommate, his taste in music, the disgusting way he got food all over his teeth while he was chewing. Good riddance. 5, coffee filters work in a pinch. A friend of mine taught me this back in the 90s. A few weeks later, she became homeless. I always wondered whether there was a connection. 6, there's a toilet paper shortage. Folks fear they'll reach into their cupboards and find them barren of tissue, so they're buying entire pallets of toilet paper. Housewives laugh maniacally as they drive away from Walmart, fresh rolls secured with bungee cords into their overflowing SUV trunks. How could we have let this happen? Is this who we are as a nation? 7, I go to bed and dream of toilet paper. Dream is like the Charmin trailer, only with better music. At first, the rolls are soft and soothing as clouds. Then they begin to multiply like the brooms in Sorcerer's Apprentice. As soon as I grab one and put it in my cabinet, 6 more appear. The music speeds up and becomes increasingly sinister. Everything is out of control. I wake up in a cold sweat. Thank God it was just a dream. But morning is months away. All right, that's that one. I'm going to read from one of my chapbooks. It's called Cocktails at Denny's. I don't know if you can see it. It's going to be backwards, of course, with the lettering.
It's right side round.
Oh,
It's right side. Okay, great. It's Cocktails at Denny's, a lovely little book that was came out on Alien Buddha Press, which I have available for sale for $10. This is called Who's Your Daddy, America? A lot of my stuff is political. You must need one, or you wouldn't keep voting. Your boss is a despot with a lariat and a concealed firearm, ready to take deadly aim against assailants. Finger flick, an issued command, and then time for a little golf. All death is collateral unless it's you. Choose the one who kills the best and hide behind his cardboard face. Dart from side to side to dodge the bullets. Prop the face in front of yours. Pray that nothing hits you. Just go along. Keep your goddamn mouth shut. And be sure to vote. All right. Here's my Twitter handle. It is @LeahSnapdragon. That's where you should reach me if you're interested in purchasing one of my books or just following me. I'm not on there as much as I used to be on Facebook. I'm taking a Facebook break through the summer, so you can reach me on Twitter. All right. Next one is from Death and Heartbreak by Weasel Press. That is a picture of a tombstone from the Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris that I went to a couple years ago. This is probably my happiest poem. I wrote it to my husband. It's after a tarot card. It's called The Sun 19. I remember the sun like I remember your father. No nonsense, unapologetic, just doing his job, 5 billion years with the same company. When it was time to turn on the lights, you didn't argue with him. You didn't beg for the snooze button. You got your ass out of bed and hustled. It was pointless to debate the man who controlled your hours. Your father had a flashy side, kept a stylish haircut, and a shiny car that he washed every weekend. When he felt benevolent, he was the nicest guy in the world. But if you caught him in a foul mood, he was a tyrant, smoldering long past bedtime. Sometimes when you sat with him, the temperature was perfect, neither hot nor cold. He surprised you with another slice of pie as he praised your brilliance. You begged for his eternal company and waited patiently for his return. No one else's warmth could ease your bones to sleep as you reclined beside the water. No one else could speak the language of dawn and nightfall. Someday you'll learn to illuminate the beam and will have no need of your father. The lantern burns without apology in a room of your own design. It may take 1,000 years for you to comprehend. Oh, but when you do, your flame will eclipse the sun and your untrained wings will beat with fierce joy against the sky.
Really nice. Really
Thank you. All right, and here's where you can text me. I'll put all these in the chat too. Here's where you can text me if you have questions or want to order a book. Oh, and you can also PayPal me at seventhhousefun@aol.com. And if you purchase a book and you've seen me on here, you'll get a $3 discount off of the cost of each book. So that's a really cool deal. I'm going to read from Misguided Behavior, which is mainly prose, tales of poor life choices. I'm just going to read the first page or so of the introductory story. And then if you want to read more of it, then you need to, of course, buy the book. This is called Running. I was in the middle of a troubled nap when I heard the clamor of the doorbell. Let me turn the light on. Hang on a second. There we go. Cursing, I rose from bed and stumbled towards the door. My obnoxious buzzer vibrated twice more. The sound was deafeningly sharp. Hang on a second, I hollered. I'll get there as soon as I can. Jesus, can you wait? I lived in Chicago in an apartment building that had been erected by sadistic urban planners several decades beforehand. The two flats stood only a few feet from a busy L station. I shared the place with two men, Dirk and Ken. Dirk was a woodworker, house painter, and drunk. Though he'd grown up in a wealthy Wilmette household, he would have been much more at home in the wilds of Arkansas. His adoptive father was president of a Fortune 500 company. The poor man couldn't fathom why his son was a scruffy ne'er-do-well who rarely bathed. My other roommate, Ken, had attended high school with Dirk. Ken was incredibly stupid, but had great taste in music. He possessed a surprising affinity for Miles Davis and owned every disc that Miles had recorded. Ken often stayed up past the break of dawn, drinking whiskey shots while listening to Bitches Brew. Occasionally, he experienced a drunken desire to grope at one of my friends, but these advances were always met with derision. Ken owned 2 white German Shepherd puppies. His drinking schedule kept him busy until 6 a.m., after which he collapsed into bed until 3 in the afternoon. During this extended sleep period, his 2 dogs, imaginatively named Whitey and Snow, remained in the kitchen. They huddled behind a plastic barricade, half-empty food bowls upended on the floor beside them. At least they always had something to eat. The bell rang 3 more times. My door had several complicated locks and a curtained window. I squinted through the filthy glass and saw my mother's familiar gaunt form. She clutched a cigarette in one hand and a dark, bulging garbage bag in the other. Hurry up, she implored. It's fucking cold out here. How the hell can you live in this weather? All right. I believe my 15 minutes is up. 15 minutes of fame. So I'm going to thank everybody for listening to this. Whoops. And I will talk to you all later, hopefully. Thank you.
Bethany.
Okay, thank you for inviting me to read.
You're welcome.
I thought I'd start with Body My House, which is a book because Kun Woon published it. And I learned that Kun is an incredible person to work with. Unfortunately, he learned that I can be difficult, but it's a beautiful book. And and it wouldn't exist if he hadn't asked me for a book at that moment. So let me read a few poems from there. Contract with the body. Today I chronicle the pleasures of the body. Each ache, the headache I woke with last night, I now recite. Its throb in my socket, the hand across my eyes as I pressed myself back into sleep. I accept the cramp, the scraped knuckle, every toe ever stubbed. For all of these, I give thanks. For crow's feet, for cellulite, for the belly and thigh, for split ends, for the child whose bicycle tire slammed into my shin, then ran over my foot, for the slammed shin and bruised foot. For the child herself, I give thanks. For the traffic light, for the rain, for my car heater, which blows only cold air, for the boy on the black and chrome motorcycle who swerves into my lane, for the stitch in my back, for the hitch in my knee, for the guts rumble, flare of a rash, the rushed heart, irregular periods, fading eye, the mammogram, the hangnail. Each new freckle I scratch across the register of my years, I turn none of it back. Even what I forget and the curse because I forgot, I welcome as evidence of breath. I write all of it down. Because you are gone, I chronicle the body and call it pleasure. I don't forget you. Hound. Like a hunter keeps hounds, I keep a string of angers chained in a muddy side yard. They bay righteously, whine and snuffle, collapse with clown faces on oversized paws. Some days a new anger arrives, a motherless pup so feckless it would be a mercy to drown it. I bring it into the house, nurse it with bottles of pablum, put it to bed swaddled in an old shirt. Now it adores my scent, turns on every trail to bound back to me, grows so huge it knocks me off my feet. I want to love it, but anger is a hound that bays even when there is no moon. All it needs is my face at the window, my nod of approval, my strangled love. Like everyone else, I seem to spend a lot of time writing and a lot of time walking. I walk like 6 or 7 miles a day because there's nothing else to do. So I thought I'd read at least one poem about walking. Unripened. We wade through hip-high brambles to find the creek running chill and dark under vine maple and Doug fir. Water skippers crinkle the face of the water. Ancient alders nod and grumble in the breeze. Our feet slip on moss-cloaked stones. In the widest pool, beavers have strewn branches, torn rags of lichen, gnawed ends of limbs, leaves still green, woven through a dam so thin it is like a sketch of a dam, and even so already slowing the slow descent of the creek to the river. Our shoes and pant legs dripping, we break a path around the beavers in hiding. We cross through twinberry and bearberry, through cascara and sorrel, wild mint and goosegrass. We wade nettles and devil's club, thistle and tansy. From hip-high brambles we pluck fat red berries, so unripe they astonish our tongue. Well, if we were reading it at the cafe, this one would be a natural. I wrote it for a friend of mine who ran a writing center, and I sometimes worked there for her. It's called English Cafe. She greets us with a simile. The daily specials listed on her oversized thesis. Will you have regular or irregular verbs? My friend orders braised claws with a side of apostrophes. I choose small plates of articles and prepositions. But no dative, the waitress asks, no genitive. She offers Shakespeare or D.H. Lawrence for dessert. We sip from snifters of strunk and white, share adverbs while coordinating conjunctions rise languidly to dance. Between parentheses, a gerund cracks jokes. We pay in participles, tip a metaphor. You've forgotten your predicate, the waitress calls after us, dangling a modifier on a ring of rhymed nouns. That was kind of fun to write. I have a PhD in literature and taught literature as well as English composition, which is bread and butter at community colleges. But anyway, I did that for about 25 years of my life. So American literature especially is really sort of central. I dream still about those books and teaching. So I don't know, I think if you're an English major, you should get points for each of the references you get. Living in books. Too much conformity turns you into a giant bug. Your mother wears a scarlet letter. If she abandons you, it's to become a notorious madam, a morphine addict who dies in the snow, a naive swimmer crossing the Gulf of Mexico. In literature, perdition is absolute. Your boss goes hunting a white whale and you have to go with him. Your husband sets his mind for California and you're up all night burning your mother's letters in the wood stove. After a storm, angels litter the backyard. You might be an angel, you might be a demon vampire, your life borrowed, illusory, posed in period costume like a doll. Bullets stop where the white space begins, life and death frozen at your leaden feet. Your mysterious neighbors, a bootlegger, a war hero in love with your cousin, a gorilla. To be safe, check all of the above. You thought it an accident that you moved here to this house, to this town at this time. Nothing, dear reader, is accidental. A new point of view, another chapter, a whole new life lies waiting with every turned page. After your death, your author will still prod you like a macabre puppet out of your grave. When I died, you'll whisper, your windowsill buzzing with trapped flies. Wow. Check my time. I think I'm good. I think I'll read this, sort of my Ars Poetica. And numerous people have pointed out to me that there's a lot about marriage in this book, but there are also a lot about horses. So, legs thin as branches. The muse, when it is new, wobbles on legs thin as branches. It bleats and mules, not a horse to be ridden, only another baby needing milk and love. You have to believe in what isn't there a long time before it begins to be there. Years pass before you dare put a saddle on its back, before you dare climb up and weigh the reins in your hands. When it is new, the muse teaches you to practice faith in the music of what you cannot hear, to make art of what you cannot see. When the day dawns for you to trust your weight to it, sit up straight, gather all that its long becoming has brought forth in you. Look steadily in the direction you must go. And I thought I would read my poems from the Chrysanthemum Anthology, which I'll bet everybody here knows about if they're not in it. Let's see. This is the same creek as made.
I want to say,
yeah.
Before you start, at every meeting, Kuhn, as somebody, gave a shameless promotion of the book, which I'm
good.
glad. So
It's a wonderful book.
It's a wonderful book. It's a wonderful book.
I was going to take Leah's idea. If anyone wants to contact me, my website actually has my initial A, Bethany A. Reed, and you could probably find me there just as easy as anywhere. Years before her death. Through fields bright with dust and Canadian thistle, we rode our horses to the creek. At the back of the farm, ancient alders and hemlock fir stood like caryatids holding up the sky. The horses waded to their bellies, plunging their noses where the pull of the creek was greatest. I looped my stirrups over the saddle horn to keep them dry. My cousin unfastened her hair, cupped a hand to the dark mirroring water, and lifted it to her lips. This is the dream of my child. All night I have reined my bay horse back to that still place. All night I have watched her reflection waver and beckon. The Grief Eaters. The day we buried her, a light mist fell, the damp at the graveside just enough to make us button our coats. At the hall later, we unbuttoned and peeled off our coats, told stories and laughed as if we'd left our grief piled in damp mounds in another room. When rain ruined the harvest, summers of my childhood, my father, hating to waste it, put it in the barn anyway, and would lose a cow or two that winter to bellyache. The day we buried her, we put up our grief exactly like that, knowing it would later have to be eaten. The Crossing. I want to say we lost my dad about a dozen years ago, and then my mother had Alzheimer's and had a long decline and died just in the fall of 2018. And recently a friend of mine said, "Stop writing elegies." But I don't know. It's kind of what I've fallen into lately. The Crossing. The last calf of the last spring of my father's life, it stood bawling, stuck on the far side of the pond's green circle. From the porch, we watched through cracked panes to see what it would do. A bull calf, a Hereford, so fresh on the earth, white face and red body, still tufted where its dam had licked the afterbirth away. The pond wasn't deep, except with April's muck and rushes, the bursting of buttercups, pollywogs poised in their jelly like fruit waiting in apple blossoms. The calf braced itself against all persuasion, head down and legs splayed, its voice a steady bellow like a bell tolling. A few months later, we were astonished at how quickly my father crossed from this life to the next, how he splashed through the mucky divide, years falling away behind him, burdens he would no longer carry. This last decade, while my mother declined and lingered, I often felt Dad's presence, long-suffering, close by. Last night, didn't I dream of that calf, his legs stockinged in pond muck as he trotted up the hill after his kind. In my dream, two figures, buttressed together and lowing, waited in a circle of verdant light and called my name. I think that's my 15. Thank you so much for inviting me to read.
Thank you,
Stick
Bethany.
around for your open mic.
Wow. Wow, nice.
Thank you again.
So I've been involved in the August Poetry Postcard Fest now. This is the 14th year.
info@popo.cards. And so I'm going to start with this poem. You can read along with me, I guess. 896, here we go. And I'll show you, this is, I do scans of the postcards. Michael McClure, one of my poetry heroes, died on May 4th. So this went to Martha Waiters of Fircrest with a Michael McClure quote: "If his eyes were not already closed, the pleasure would shut them. He has allowed his consciousness to become a blank field. And so goes the rebel lion, rebellion, on surrender to the great life force. And so goes his one last act of mammal patriotism, splash of Johnny Walker Black on his lips. This is reason, but so is rah." Which of course comes from his Ghost Tantra series from 1965, I think. And when I read this to Jason Worth, he said that Deleuze said philosophy is an animal cry in search of syntax. The second card, oh, the sharing window is closed. I'm going to share again the second card. Also, these are all elegies from McClure. This one is 899 to Lil Ann Musselman of Eaton, Indiana. Blue Black may have been Michael McClure, beat Black Mountain Poet's favorite color, throat chakra, communication, plus the absence of reflected light. His blue-black may have come from Sudan's second civil war, while tonight swallows are a blue-black blur of evening poetry. And that was the postcard I sent, postcard collage. And I'll read one last poem here if I can find it. Yada, yada, yada. Well, I'll just read this last sonnet instead of a postcard because it's handy. Written on March 16th, early in the lockdown period. Epigraph Paul Celan, being, no heaven is, no earth, and the memory of both extinguished, but for the one ash tree believing nuthatch. COVID-19 sonnet. Earth closed, which was the sky's wish, the birds, trees, unspoken mammal wish, as if heterotrophs had a vote and should, and then do when they conspire to halt human progress for a few weeks. Lighten the air, unclog the cities, add a dash of duende to the stew we call life without sports, without eating out, within no closer than 6 feet of the average human germ-spewing capability. Earth closed as a reset button, as in what's in it besides rat race for you, as in how might you act in prison but still cooking your own meals, as in get to enjoy, really enjoy brown rice. Earth first, finally, we had it coming, we stable geniuses, knowing humans have all the answers, all the technology, all the gear except for face masks, hand sanitizer, toilet paper, and ventilators. Duendification of life resynchronizes us with the nuthatch and redwing, the coot raft and seagulls, and there is no panic buying by the lake. There is no hoarding except for squirrel. There's nothing else. There's nothing but these last 3 days of winter and a slight sense of the new normal in late capitalism.
Love it.
Thank you.
I'm going to go wash my hands now.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name's Carrie. I have 2 short poems to share with you tonight. The first is called Mayday. It's kind of a mushy poem, which is unusual for me, but it's kind of fun to be inspired to write mushy poems. So it's called Mayday. You cherry blossomed me right into the ocean, up all night like a rainstorm banging on my windows, up all night like a manic obsessed with someone's skin, up early in the morning to take it all back in again. You drove right through the danger to my father's favorite harbor where I hid my little girl heart under a crab shell in the sand. You threatened me with drowning while I laughed, lapping like a mermaid, licking at the land I lost, learning how to swim again. I drove us the long way home again to the same cherry blossom street this spring dream sprang from within, where I pulled you closer than pink petals raining on our skin, a newness not imagined since the last time sinking in. Contraptions tricking time to tease itself into a softer tapping. The mind melts into meteoric howls of the haze where heaven happens. The human heart of heat and humid hands that can't remember clapping, but can't forget the holy hum of hymns that heal within. Breathless now, the breathless wow of every stolen mile, the bringing back of better things, souvenirs with style, rocks and rest and restlessness, floating for a while, on rivers raw with nevers, on slow, sweet springtime sin. Have we been secret since before we met? Something long believed, an old-fashioned romance made of what's been broken and bereaved, a daydream too elusive to become a brazen seed of something that can't happen, a warning we can't heed, all the chapters written in a language we can't read. The courage of my coast-born soul sends me diving right back in.
Beautiful.
Okay, and I have one other quick one, and it's called, I guess, peeling. Peeling these layers, a reeling feeling, coming home feet first. Oops. I'll just skip. I don't have that one quite ready. Go ahead. We'll go to the next
there.
person.
Okay. So this poem is called Dig. He stands on the third terrace of the Stehekin, his old bed in a shallow pit, looking down into compact strata, talcum fine silt. Nearby, a pile of gravel soil brushed in sieve. At the plow zone, he finds the tumult where the centuries blend. Grasped a settler's root cutter, lost 100 years ago in the strawberries. And below, the first clean stone chips. Scratch his toe like nail clippings. He kneels to brush the loose dirt to the dustpan, to the spruce tree. Stroke after stroke, gentle brushing through the long hours of the afternoon. Then the quick edge of stone. Rock breaks carefully struck to carve a bevel, a keen edge. He cups the broken piece in his hand, feels the man's skill, sees him bent to his work as he strikes and splinters rock. He cups the broken piece in his hand, feels the man's skill. He strikes and splinters rock to shape a spear, an arrow tip, many thousands of years ago, calls him tool cutter. The next one is a short poem of the seashell. I hold it to my ear, hear what it says about longing, the terrible grief of being human. Listen to the tumble and pull of wave and wind. The earth eats us up, bit by bit. Fish drinks the ocean, but it doesn't get any smaller. I would pack my bag, find my home by the sea. Oh, talk to me like sisters. There are fishes on their high silk. Tide washes the beach every day. Let me be old here. I will eat clouds. Thank you.
Spotlighted.
Hi, I'm Claire, and I'm here from Palm Springs. So I have two short poems. The first one was published in The Perch, which is Yale's magazine or journal, and is in my forthcoming book, Song of the Trees. This morning, I put a bag of pistachios in the oven, misplaced my wedding ring, but no matter. In my garden, a scarlet butterfly lies comatose on the grass, under silver trees. The trees, I think they sing to me, their sunlit leaves tumbling into my drag through the hedge backwards hair as I deadhead the roses. This afternoon, listening to Ella, I will bake peach cobbler, let it cool by a glass of ruby wine. And when the song of the trees is surrendered to the rising moon, when stars fall into my outstretched hand, then I will remember you. And this is a prose poem I've just finished. It's very different. Death by drowning. If you commit suicide in your pool, it will be drained and used as a temporary grave site, said the letter from the Department of Unforeseen Deaths. Not just for you, we will commandeer it for those corpses who do not have the luxury of drowning in their own pools. Furthermore, we can't promise that family members that die together will be buried together. That evening, the police flew an army of drones over Southern California to monitor the rapidly developing situation. Dimly lit by stars, hundreds of bodies floated face down in hundreds of pools, arms outstretched. There was no need to touch. No notes were left for loved ones. The shock was endless, deeper than any pool. The media reported that deranged extroverts, left to their own devices for too long, stripped naked and jumped into their pools. Some danced to the point of death before they gyrated into the water. Some howled and shouted obscenities at the sky. It was announced that the families of those heard cursing would lose their death benefits. Neighbors were asked to spy on drowners, to call 1-800-corpses for a reward. The next day, throughout the state of Florida, more bodies in more pools were recovered. And the day after, even more discovered in Maryland, then Oregon and Texas. Save for the Strasbourg dancing plague of 1518, psychologists had little research to call on, a lack of precedent to follow. The government makes this clear that this type of collective behavior will not be tolerated. Think very carefully about the consequences of your actions. Don't be selfish. No one should have to speculate about the loss of their loved one. Failure to drown is a felony, punishable by house arrest. Death by drowning is now against the law in all states.
Oh,
My, my.
Wonderful.
oh my.
Ooh. Oh, thank you, Claire. I just always expect to hear the line, and the raccoons are in the attic at the end of each poem now.
I'll remember to put them in.
That definitely should be the title of a poetry book or something. Or, you know, it could be the name of a poetry reading, you know, or something, or a band.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll be reading one poem tonight. I want to preface it by thanking Bethany Reed for using the word caryatid in one of her poems. I've written a poem called Caryatid, which has never been read, nor will it be read tonight. It's a poem that I have revised more than anything I've ever written. And it is what it is, so I thank you for that. This is called The First Book. The first book, whenever it appeared on the first shelf, was a 3-ring binder. A book whose content kept changing with the color of the dawn, with the death of my parrot. Sometimes it was the names only that changed, the names of the workers who laid brick on brick, or who cleared the stones from the path to the top of this hill or that hill. I snuck my name into page 2 when it was my turn to have the book for a moment. And all was well, until in walked a man with another book, one that had been bound and stitched from beginning to end, not capable of remaining open to new words, new thoughts, arguments, 5-word tantrums. A book that really belonged to him, not to the shelf, not to the community, not to the child whose drawing could be slipped into the book, The first book remained alone on the shelf as the shelf began slowly filling up with newly stitched volumes. Stories of creation, fixed stories, stories of heroes, wars, names of monarchs, fictitious fools, legendary loves, not my love, not your war. The stitched books offered us an identity. Take it or leave it. They told us where we came from and where we were going. And the shelf became unbearable, heavy with books, and the shelf broke.
Ah,
My, my. I just am in a my mood tonight. Did you have another one, Joel?
And that's the funny one.
That's funny. Did you have another one?
I could come up with one that's oh my gosh. I have it reminds me of the one about tenses. I think that was Miss Reed as well. I have one called Punctuation I could read.
perfect.
It's a one pager with a pretty big font, so it doesn't last long. Punctuation. In the Old West, we punctuated our sentences with bullets, leaving a brief pause for desperate pleading. Wars grew out of well-crafted rhetoric, the generals punctuating their orders with bombs and invasions. The president stood before us with a worried expression, promising not to punctuate our history with mass murder and occupations. Children paraded to school in rank and file, prepared to learn proper punctuation, spelling, syntax, the manipulation of verbs and nouns, debate in preparation for condemnation, ending at times in massacre. We taught them the history of slavery with the lives of runaways, sometimes punctuated by lynching. Gentlemen, I give you the semicolon. Do what you will with it. I don't want a history of bullet points, not for me, my family, unknown mothers, children with their run-on sentences. Period.
Ah,
My.
Shall I go?
Yeah.
that was fun.
My dislike of the slog has gone. When did it leave me? Somewhere along the switchbacks up Mount Si? Somewhere under the Douglas fir and hemlocks? Maybe at the summit after scrambling up the haystack? When the Snoqualmie Valley stretched below us and we ate our sandwiches and I drained my first water bottle, knowing I had plenty to drink on the way down? Or was it on a different hike or home on a mundane dog walk up Admiral Way? It's possible that dislike escaped its cage while I slept. I would like to take more conscious credit though, because I did chip away at my fear on purpose. I subverted it and told myself to love the exertion, the long repetition of steps up mountainsides, the faster breath, the sweat, the presence alongside silent ferns and silent rocks.
Nice. That came through really nice.
Oh, good.
And I appreciate it, the poem, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to read
All
two
right.
poems. I was recently published in an anthology called Poems from the Lockdown. The first one, Waiting Alone. If I washed my hands for 20 seconds with soap and hot water, scrubbing vigorously, could I save you? My world has frozen like an old movie projector, stopped in between frames, one frame imposed on the next, not clear, the way my future is not clear, not written, depends on what I do next. How will I wash, and if I isolate my body? Tamp down longings to hold you, see you smile when I run my fingers through your hair, smell the faint trace of Irish spring on your skin, and be so close I can watch your whiskers sprout. It is spring. Weeds and flowers push up from where they lay hidden over the dark winter. The birds are raising a ruckus, making it hard for me to sleep. Part of me resents their chorus while I am alone, isolated and living within quiet. Thoughts of saving the world tumble into those of tossing my granddaughter high, catching her in my arms amid giggles and wriggles and the words, "More Gamma, do it again."
Mm.
And the second one is called "Let's All Dance in the Street." I am the elder. They ask me to stay in the house, and no one visits, but I wash and eat soup, and I pray. Before long, the guests will come. They won't notice that I am still the elder who washed and waited, who ate and prayed alone. Instead, they'll bring potluck dishes and bottles of wine. They'll know that they thank me. They'll pour the wine and raise the toast to health. And so we'll eat and drink, and then I'll say, "Come with me. Let's all dance in the street."
Thank you. Nice. Lady Spotlight. Okay.
Oh, God. Okay. I'm going to read 2 poems. And full disclosure, I'm actually wearing long johns under this really pretty scarf because it's past my bedtime. This first poem is from a chapbook called Unraveling the Endless Knot through Middle Creek Press. It's mostly Unraveling the Endless Knot refers to ecological issues these days, and the short break this planet's gotten recently actually with pandemic. So this one's called, well, maybe that one's kind of long. This one's called The Last Migration. There are multitudes of bright souls on the wing on their way north or south, depending on the season, depending on the latitude, gliding overhead in V formations. Their mission is peace, seeking a place to rest. But where the Great Plains welcomed, now a drought has wiped away even the chaff, and in the east the forests are on fire. Still wings come, but fewer and fewer each year, until the day when we look up and see only empty sky. And this one's from something I'm working on called Ghost in the Pine Woods. It's for a old friend that passed away several years ago. He was an artist. I'm an illustrator, and so this is for him. It's called Sitting on. He was also a jazz musician too. Sitting on Jack's memorial bench with silence also swings engraved. A musician and artist, he knew silence, endless nights of it, in his old shack next to the Portage store. I wandered through his open door one evening with a bottle of red wine. He was gnarled and brittle as an old man's Anita, but he had a kind heart. He had real talent too, that never quite evolved. Perhaps he drank himself out of it, or the wires were just too slack to spark it into life, but I felt his presence in what he painted, his deep desire to get it right. This alone is magic. As anyone who ever tries knows, great art, like great love, can suck the life from your bones before they ever go under a stone. So I sit on your monument like patience, but swinging. Thank you.
Mm. Mm. Late. Well, this is the end of our poetry, but there's another part of poetry that we've been noticing is that people just like to chat. Just So what was this evening like for you? Anything you want to say to each other? Just any thoughts as we're kind of wrapping this up, what I call community chat.
I just want to say before I go, because it's my bedtime, Bethany, your book, my body, my house, the recent one, I just love it.
Oh, thank you. Sandra,
You're
you
welcome.
you were one of 30 poets I featured on my blog in April.
So that's, I don't get out much, and I should.
Well, I didn't have your emails, but if you go to bethanyareed.com, you'll find that you're one of the features. My goal was to read a book of poetry a day and blog something about it.
Oh, well, that's marvelous. I'm honored. Thank you very much. And thanks for doing this. This is fun. Kun, thanks for telling me about it too. All right, I'm going to shut up now.
Thank you, Sandra. I really enjoyed that.
Oh, thank you. Yours too.
And everybody. It is nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to have this to look forward to every week.
It's a great.
Well,
Is
it's
this every
weird.
Wednesday?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, we used to, when we were at C&P Coffee doing this, you know, live and in person, it was every once a month, which seemed like the right, you know, amount of time. But it seems like once a week is appropriate for particularly the kind of separation that most of us experience now. And I've enjoyed it a lot. One thing I've noticed is that I was kind of I compare it with C&P, my experience at C&P. And it was never one of those studio experiences. There was always somebody coming through the front door just to get a cup of coffee. There was, the bell would ring, then the coffee machine would grind. There'd be 3 or 4 people having some political conversation or learning about, I don't know, sewing or something, you know, in the room next door, and they didn't keep their voices down. It was just this ambience of being in the world. You know, it wasn't there for poetry. It was just had its own business, and poetry somehow lived within that. And I've noticed that the Zoom experience is similar because all our mics are different, all our cameras are different, our internet connections are different, and a lot of us move around and stuff, and some of us are in the light, some of us are kind of in the dark. It just adds to a kind of charm. And there was a part of me for a while, I wanted everything to become more uniform, and I've let go of that totally. I just like, I like the distortion, and I just like the individuality sort of that comes out, in addition, of course, the poetry.
Can we check the coffee filters? I'm a little concerned about
Coffee filters?
They're not being multi-purposed.
I finally gave that up during a pandemic, and it was the first time in my life that I ever had a surplus of toilet paper, because I was always one of those wait to the last roll and then go out to the store last minute, kind of people. I mean, there's like 2 kinds of people in the world. There are the people that just always stockpile toilet paper, like my friend Diane in Chicago. I remember visiting her like 4 or 5 years ago. I was like, God, she's got like hundreds of rolls of toilet paper. So she was prepared for this shit, I'm sure. And then people like me, it was like, oh, wow, really? We've only got like a quarter of a roll left. And I was like, well, I'm going to go, like immediately. So, yeah.
Oh, I finally got it. Paul, you on your chat, you said, why does my coffee taste like shit? I finally got it. Okay. Yeah, you really ruined coffee for me in a major way. Fortunately, I don't use a filter. I have an espresso machine, so I don't have to worry about somebody may have used it for other purposes.
Well, you're supposed to throw it out after. Really.
Well,
gotta, keep your shit together, so to speak. It's like, hello.
That poem was great. That was memorable.
Yeah, I really enjoyed tonight. I enjoyed each of you. And
oh, gross.
What'd you say, Paul?
In the chat.
What, is he doing something in the chat again?
Oh, no.
It's like, I would like to, what is it? One new message. I would like.
Oh.
There is corn in my coffee?
Yeah.
Fiber.
I'm going to actually capture the chat and I'll post it on Facebook page.
Oh,
No, I won't. No. Something ought to be just.
we want people to keep
Those of us who
coming to
experience.
this. Don't want
Okay.
to scare people away, Leopold.
I'm
Yeah.
saying goodnight. Thank you
So
all
I just
again.
want you to know before we
Thank
sign off,
you.
for some of you, I just want you to know that now that that's in my head of the 24-hour Zumarathon or Zuma marathon, you know, as Paul kind of did it, I won't be able to get it out of my head. I'm already planning how we might do that with rotating people, taking sleep shifts, and the camera's always on. People could just come on, and it's a really bad idea that I just am now infected with.
We did something similar to that at Little Red Studio, Leopoldo, like an artathon, and yeah, it was just the studio was open for 24 hours, and anyone could come in at any point and do any kind of art, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
We have a lot of actors who read the Mueller report straight through, and they took tips.
Oh yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I think it'd be fun to do with just the people we know and attract people. Already, we've got people here from Columbia River, right? You're down there in the gorge, Joel.
Yeah.
And then we got people in, I can't remember all the places people are at. I mean, as far away as Auburn or something.
Excuse me.
Just kidding. Auburn's not that far away, for those of you who don't know the area. All right, good to see you again.
Dash on.
Good to see you and your lovely friend. And good to see you, Pamela, and your lovely friend, Roy.
Am I lovely?
Well, I just wanted to be, more democratic about the loveliness.
All right, thank you.
I have these British friends, and they're I Zoom with them or FaceTime with them, and they're always saying lovely, which now I believe is in itself lovely. So I just want to use it more often. That I think tonight has been truly lovely. So with that, unless somebody else has anything to say, I'll say good night, and I'll see you next week.
All right, good night.
Nice. I love the Portage store reference, by the way.